So shall we start?
Yes, we can go ahead and start.
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to this SESA webinar related to the solar energy in Africa. SESA, it's Smart Energy Solutions for Africa, which is a consortium project funded by the European Union. And this webinar is coordinated jointly between UN Habitat, Smart Innovation Norway, and ICLEI. SESA, it's in Ghana, Kenya, Namibia, Nigeria, Rwanda. It is mainly actually looking at providing or looking at the access to technologies and business models to be tailored to a specific condition in a particular country, but also essentially to be able to be replicated. We are looking pretty much on decentralized energy solutions, especially renewable energy, in this case, solar energy, the storage systems, the second use of storage battery, for example, electric vehicles, looking at smart microgrids and waste to energy, and most importantly, the connectivity aspect in the rural areas. So this webinar is going to have three sessions. One is going to be related to innovation in solar energy, and the second one will be on policy and finance experiences from the Living Lab, which are part of the SESA project. So without actually much time, I would like us to start, with the first session, which is about innovation in solar energy. And in that, we have a quorum of panelists. We have Samuel Asare, Gifty Mwangairo, Ibrahim Musa, if you are around. I haven't seen Ibrahim, but also Eriki Rumulizi. So Samuel is a founder and CEO of Nastec Power Solutions in Ghana. Gift is a managing director of Smart Energy Enterprise with expertise and degree in physical planning, and he has got experience in management, strategic advancement of the enterprise. And so we are very much hoping that to hear from you. Ibrahim Musa, I think he is not around. He was from IG Energy from Tanzania, but we have Eriki Rumuliza. Musa, you're here?
Yes, I'm around.
Good. So yeah, we also have Ibrahim Musa, who is the Chief Operations Officer at the AG Energies. It's a private company that is dealing with solar distribution aspects based in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. And we also have Eriki Rumuliza, who is a data analyst at the Energy Enterprise, Energy Private Developers from Rwanda. He's holding a Bachelor of Degree in Electronics and Telecommunication Engineering with 7 years experience in energy and telecom, of course, looking at solving some issues in the power sector. So you are most welcome, the panelists, and I'd like to start asking a question that Samuel, you are going to take it up. Essentially, what we want to know, would you like to tell the audience, what are the issues to be addressed to increase appetite in solar investment in Africa? I know you have been dealing very much with the people, the final end users of energy, but what do you think are the issues to be addressed to increase the appetite of investment in the solar energy in Africa?
Samuel, you're muted.
I'm sorry about that. Thank you, Emmanuel. So for us in Ghana here, I think access to solar has been one of the areas in renewable energy that is really lacking, especially for those in the off-grid areas. And the challenges associated with accessing it is mainly because of its affordability, as well as the access to the relevant information about renewable energy, especially with solar, which is very much lacking, especially for those in the off-grid communities. So to actually improve on this, to help people get to understand that solar energy is the best options available, and then also to increase the appetite for people who want to get access to solar energy, I think one of the major things we have to do to really improve on that is to provide the necessary information about the solar energy, the benefits, then the user aspect of it, how important it is for people to use it, and then also the benefit people derive from actually moving to solar or getting access to solar energy. This information is currently not available to majority of people in Ghana here, and that is one area that must be worked on and to improve the information accessibility to it. And then that will help people get access to the information, as well as being able to get access to the technologies available that will help in promoting solar energy in Ghana. And then aside that, also in terms of its affordability, I think locally, most people don't know that we can actually produce solar energy within our local communities or local environment using the available technologies. For instance, we can rely on second life batteries, as we are doing in Ghana here. We produce solar energy system from second life batteries, from lithium-ion batteries that we collect from waste laptop batteries, among others. And these are what we are using to help promote access to solar energy in Ghana. And then, so to also help to improve on it, there should be local technologies available that are also into this area, which will make it more affordable and more accessible. And that will also help as many as possible the people who want to actually get into it, get access to solar energy. So improving on the affordability aspect of it, and as well as improving on the information accessibility aspect of it, is one of the key areas that I think should be considered in this particular manner.
Thank you very much, Samuel. Actually, you have brought up very pertinent issues related to data and information. Of course, if you don't have data and information, that means there's nothing you can do. And actually, that cuts across not only in the technical accessibility, but also the policy aspects of it. So I'm going to ask Gift from Malawi to actually reflect on the same question. But what are the issues in Malawi that are impending, the uptake of the solar technology from the private sector perspectives?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Basically, there are a number of factors that the solar sector in Malawi. One of the most prominent ones is
Gift, your sound is a bit distorted. Maybe you want to turn off your camera. Maybe that will improve the internet connectivity.
Can you hear me clearly now?
Now it's good, yeah.
All right, okay, thank you very much. We are looking at the registration process in Malawi. It is just too cumbersome for the incoming investors to make investment in the energy sector in Malawi. So the bureaucratic strands in Malawi are just too complicated, and they leave the strands to they leave the investors to be captured in the cobweb of bureaucracy, where it is making it very difficult for the investors to come into the solar energy industry, which also poses a room for corruption, bribery, and nepotism. This makes it very difficult for investors to come in and make investment in the solar energy industry in Malawi. So this is very, very dangerous to the development of solar energy industry. So one of the factors that hinders the development of solar energy industry is that the process of registration to obtain a certificate from the energy regulatory authorities is just too cumbersome. And even when we look at the financing options for these upcoming or incoming investors, it is actually very, very difficult for investors to obtain finances from the banks due to high interest rates, which actually lies in the banks. This actually minimizes the appetite of the investors to come and make investments in the solar energy sector, since the solar energy industry actually is associated with high upfront cost of the solar panels and the solar products. And it requires a substantial investment from the financial institution and other important players in the financing industry. So with this barrier of high interest rates offered by the banks and other financing institution hiccups or regulatory requirements which are required by these financing institutions to be covered by the investors, makes it very difficult for the investors to continue or pursue investing in the solar energy industry. And also, one but not least is the lack of good policies by the government that actually promote sustainable development of solar energy. These policies do not create a conducive environment for the investors to come and invest in the solar energy industry. As I earlier pointed out, that these solar energy systems has high upfront costs, which makes it very difficult for these companies to engage in them. So there is need of government to develop policies that actually creates a conducive environment for enterprises to work on the same. So to me, that's my contribution. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gift. Actually, you are bringing very important issues, especially when it comes to your private sector perspectives. I know the policy regulations and the financing are very key when it comes to doing business. Of course, Malawi, fortunately, is not like alone when it comes to frustrations that you just mentioned. But of course, I'd like to ask the panelists of the next session to, of course, take this up and, of course, bring a little bit of perspectives that can unlock that kind of thing in terms of policy and financing. So to move forward, I would like to welcome Ibrahim Musa Karibu, and I'll be asking you a little bit of different question, not the same as whatever. But of course, it has been said that cost of solar technology is really going down drastically. And, you know, we've been reading a lot of that, like the solar PV is going down. And of course, maybe battery is also coming down. But what is your experience exactly? Is there a positive trend? I mean, you are doing that kind of a business of selling solar products. Do you see any positive trend of cost reduction? And that actually makes a wide uptake of the solar technology on the ground.
Yeah, thank you very much, Emmanuel. Yeah, from my experience, the cost of solar products, it's keep going down compared to the 3-4 years. And also the technology, it's keep improving. And for example, we are having cost of product like inverters. Now with the new technology, we have hybrid inverters, which have combined everything. So it's just keep reducing the price of the inverters, price of panels. So which is good for the end user because it's make it
Musa, yes.
Oh, sorry, I think you lost me.
We lost Musa, I guess.
Yes,
Okay.
we lost me. Yeah, I think I don't know what just happened. Maybe internet issues.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I was saying that the cost of products keep reducing, and especially we have seen with the trend of the market nowadays. Sorry, the cost of a product like lithium-ion batteries, it's keep going down. It's becoming more available and also more affordable to the end user. And also, what has helped here in our market in Tanzania, the governmental policy, which is allowing to have zero import duty and zero VAT on solar product. This, yes, this is one of it's a key factor which is driving also the solar product to become cheaper, especially in our region.
Thank you very much, Musa. I think our friend Gift from Malawi has got something to learn from Tanzania when it comes to the policy aspects. But I'm very happy to hear that you are testing. Like what we are reading is not like publications that are just like that, but actually on the ground the prices are down. And perhaps the affordability is almost reached for the solar technology. But I'll ask also Eric to tell us what is the experience from Rwanda? Do you see solar technology now becoming affordable to most people? Or from the private perspective, what do you think?
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. I am Eric Ruhumuriza, as we've just said, and I work with Energy Private Developers. It is an umbrella association of all private investors who have invested in the energy sector in Rwanda. Among the subsectors we have in our association, solar home systems are the ones with the highest number of members. We have around 40 member companies, but the active ones are 10. The reason why the number is 40 and the active ones are 10 is because of an issue of access to finance. Here, it is not like in Malawi when you come as an investor and you really want to invest in energy, there is when you want to register any company in Rwanda, it is easy. You can open it in just 24 hours, and you are legally allowed to operate in the country in any business. And when investors come and they want to invest in the energy sector, our Rwanda Development Board orients them to our office as Private Sector Federation, so that we can discuss with the investors and see the opportunities, with the stadium opportunities in the sector where they can make profit. We share their experience and then we orient where to invest. So like registration is easy, starting a business is easy, but when companies start, sometimes they meet some challenges. One of the challenge is the access to finance. Sometimes when you want to invest in energy, it requires a very big capital. Like you need to have a really tangible capital to invest in energy. Like you want to set up a mini grid. According to the standards here, sometimes they ask mini grids to generate around from 10 kilowatt to 10 megawatt. That is a mini grid. So you find that it requires some startup capital that is quite higher. So for most of the local companies, they don't have that capacity to invest in the energy. So by the local companies most of them are in solar home system, like they import systems, households, they install in the household like a panel and they buy the converter and bulbs, lighting bulbs, and then that one has got incentives. The World Bank has invested some of the money, it's around $50 million to support the growth of solar home systems, because then there's a national target of electrifying all Rwandans by 2024. So the government has requested the World Bank to put in some incentives, and the World Bank has offered 50 million USD to facilitate private investors to electrify remote areas where there's no much access to power generation. They have been given to the private investors to supply electricity in those places. So, but the eligibility criteria for a company to get the money has been a challenge to most of the local companies. They require a company to be in existence for at least 3 years of experience, like so you exist and you're connecting, you're at work, and they require you to be having financial audits of 3 previous years. I'm just listing a few criteria that mostly become a challenge to our companies, and they also want you to be having quite a number of qualified staff. And sometimes we find that companies start, but the owners of the companies are the ones qualified in the field. The rest of the staff are just people picked from the streets, and they just train them for 3 days and they start connecting. So you find that the incentive was meant for the local companies, but it ended up facilitating the international companies because they are the ones that are meeting the criteria that are set by the World Bank. You find that among the 40 companies, only 10 benefit. And only when you analyze on those 10, you find that they are international companies. They are the ones that with audit reports, financial reports for the 3 previous years, they are the ones with the qualified staff because they are the ones who are able to pay them well. But then connection on the ground has been a success. They really tried because the government is following it up and making evaluation and assessment every month to see whether the people are being connected. So among the status of electrification in Rwanda now, it's like the Rwandans are connected, 81% of the population, 81% of the households are connected to electricity. 47, these are the statistics of 2022. 47 are connected to the grid, but 14 are connected using off-grid, of which 11 are solar home system, and then 3 are mini grids. So the 14% is the share of the private investors in the electrification of the country.
That's interesting perspective from Eric from Rwanda. Of course, Rwanda is a renowned country that has got very good policies, foreign policies, sort of to say. but you are bringing a very important perspectives of the capacity building. That of course, we as SESA will be taking it up. Like much as we embrace, bringing technology from the north, there has to be true, south-north cooperation and capacity building on the ground, because it won't make any sense. What I'm hearing from you is like that it does not make any sense to bring in foreign companies and they do it themselves, and then the local capacity is not built up. So thank you very much, the panelists, for this session. I would request Judith that I proceed with session 2, and all the questions will be asked maybe at the end due to the time limitations. Is that fine, Judith?
Yes, that is okay. So I would request the speakers from the next panel, if you could just turn your video on, just so that I could spotlight you, and then, yeah, it will make it easier to spotlight you.
All right, so we are moving on to the second session, which is about the policy and financing. This is going to be an interesting session, I can imagine, because even the private sector has brought about a lot of issues related to the policy and financing. So here we have Joao Cunha and Matthew Matimbi and Laban Okeyo. Joao is a division manager of renewable energy department at the African Development Bank, based in Abidjan in Ivory Coast. He's also a leader of the Sustainable Energy Fund for Africa, SEFA, which is a multi-donor special fund managed by the IFDB. SEFA is particularly interesting because it's among its priorities are the green base load and green mini grids, which pretty much solar plays a critical role. So it's going to be interesting to hear from Joao on different things related to energy financing perspectives. Dr. Engineer Matthew Matimbi is the Executive Secretary of Tanzania Renewable Energy. He's leading the national umbrella of private sector Renewable Energy Association. He's also leading the realization of the engagements aiming at creating renewable energy and energy efficiency business, enabling the environment in Tanzania. He's also a chairman of the East African Renewable Energy Federation with the membership of East African National Renewable Association. Mr. Laban Okeye works for the county government of Kisumu as a senior renewable energy officer, which is mandated with implementation of renewable energy projects and programs in the county, including policy formulation. He has 10 years experience in these aspects, with Bachelor of Science in Manufacturing Engineering and Technology. He's also a member of different institutions like the Engineers of Association of Kenya, but also KEREA and other professional associations. So welcome the three of you in this session. So I will start with Joao because you have had a lot of kind of concerns and challenges when it comes to accessing the financing of the solar energy in Africa. So, I mean, I know SEFA is also having some instruments, but also FDB Mainstream Bank is also having some stuff. So what can you tell us? I mean, because people are saying, well, accessing financing needs, like collateral, like auditing, very stringent auditing. What is the offer that we can get from FDB that gives a little bit of relief to these people that wants to access the financing?
Sure. Thanks, Emmanuel, and it's a pleasure to be here. I apologize. I just had some power cuts, so I've been on and off. I hope it doesn't go down again. So financing solar energy in Africa. Look, I think the good news is that solar has really come of age. I think it's come through the interventions of the previous speakers. They have become mature technologies. They are least cost. They're easily deployable, and they are modular, right? So you can do it sort of from large utility scale sort of projects, independent power producers, all the way to sort of a household solar and Pico solar products. And you actually see at least the development finance institutions increasingly active in financing solar PV projects of all scales, obviously with a bias towards the larger scale projects. On our side, we are very keen to finance solar energy. We've launched various solar, solar programs to sort of move the markets, to sort of develop the markets. Having said that, I think there are some challenges that still persist. I think some of them have been flagged earlier. I can sort of elaborate a bit further on a few other issues. But at the bottom line for a financier is, if you're an equity investor, you want to see your capital being remunerated. So you want to make some return to compensate you for the risks that you're taking. If you are a lender, you're mainly concerned about the risks and ensuring that you get your money back, right? And I think this is the risk return sort of a proposition that a lot of people talk about. I think this is at the essence the problem of financing some of the solar projects, especially the smaller scale ones. So we've heard about policy and regulatory frameworks. For example, for mini grids, these are absolutely critical. Issues of licensing, of tariffs. Can you sort of charge cost reflective tariffs? You have to play by the national tariff. What are the quality standards that need to be adhered to? Are there any import duty exemptions? Are there any VAT tax reductions? All of these elements will have an impact on the project costs and obviously on the returns, right? And they also pose risks for the project. We also seeing, at least in the sort of the smaller scale sort of end of the spectrum, so the mini grids and the household solar, we're seeing that the business models are still not entirely mature, right? So there's still a lot of experimentation, and a lot of these businesses are still struggling to get to profitability, right? So they're still struggling to break even and eventually make a return. So it becomes very hard to bank them, to finance them, when it's not clear what the sort of the value proposition is, or the risk return proposition is. There is also an issue of scale, right? And it's hard, especially for large financial institutions like the African Development Bank, but other development finance institutions. It's very hard to come and finance very small projects, right? This is why you see us in the big projects, the large scale projects, the megawatt scale, but then when we're talking about smaller projects, it becomes quite hard to participate. And then obviously the last point, and I think this was alluded to, is the engagement with local banks and the access to local currency finance. And I think this is a critical point, because most of the smaller businesses in solar are transacting primarily in their local currencies, but a lot of the lenders or the investors are coming in with dollars or euros, and they're expecting a dollar and euro sort of payback or return. And this is a fundamental sort of a challenge, because there are fluctuations, there are devaluations in the currencies, and that can immediately sentence the project to death. Having said that, we are working on a number of programs to address these issues. We see, for example, the opportunity to mobilize climate finance, because there's a very strong climate narrative with solar, not just on the mitigation side, but on the adaptation side. And I think it's important for other players and developers to look into the issue of, or the narrative around adaptation, how our solar products and solar energy increasing resilience of local communities and households. And this can really be a catalyzer of adaptation finance. We're looking to invest in private equity funds, in energy access private equity funds that are providing sort of equity and hands-on support to developers to help them really grow the business, expand the business, and bring the business to a point of maturity where then lenders and even possibly local banks can come in and provide debt on affordable terms. We're providing some funding also for experimentation of, productive use applications. So a lot of, part of the solution could be on stimulating the demand, stimulating the consumption of energy, increasing the loads, and that can usually be done through, agribusiness applications. It can be done through electric mobility solutions. We're starting to see some experimentation there, and that could be very promising to increase the profitability, the returns, the resilience of these business models, and make them more bankable. And we're trying to work with local banks through guarantee products, providing guarantees, because local banks are very conservative. As you were rightly saying, their collateral requirements are very high, their interest rates are very high, the tenors are short, and basically their financial products are not adequate to the kind of finance that you need for solar businesses. So we're working with local banks to provide them guarantees to help, and also support them with technical assistance to help them really engage meaningfully in the sector, to be able to provide more credits at more affordable terms, and to know how to diligence and invest in these kinds of projects. So I'll stop it there for now. That's a very general reflection, but I'm happy to go into more detail on some of these aspects and some of the programs that we're driving at the moment. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Joao. I mean, I know, of course, the banks, have been trained to be skeptical. They just don't give money like that. So for sure, I mean, you don't want to, everybody wants to invest and then get back the returns, much as the private sector also want to do the same, but also the financiers will want to do exactly that. I think I might want to also add that, speaking of, say, distributed energy systems like solar home systems and small scale solutions, might well be financed from different perspectives, different subsidy from different windows. For example, I know some countries have got the so-called result-based financing that are sitting within, the government institutions like the rural electrification funds and the like. So I think there are many ways of killing a cat, but of course, it also dwells down to the policy of the country, but also how attractive investments are in a particular country. So thank you very much, Joao, for that perspectives. I want to move to Mr. Laban from the Kisumu County in Kenya. So you heard about issues related to policies, regulations and the like. And of course, Kenya, I know counties are very semi-autonomous, and they have a lot to do on their particular counties. So what do you want to share with the audience when it comes to the policy and success factors of deploying solar energy, looking at Kisumu County perspectives? You are on mute. You are on mute. If you can, yes.
Yes, thank you. Sorry for that. My name is Laban, as I mentioned. I work for local government in Kenya. Kenya has 47 county governments, the regional governments, and the national government. Going to the question, allow me to mute my video because I'm a bit of working, but I will try to put a few things into perspective. Kenya is advantaged due to its location. And in terms of solar installation, we are currently at 170 megawatts. That is the large-scale plants that inject power into the national grid. That is different from the several mini-grids that are spread across several areas. We are very ambitious, and the government has put in place strategies to exploit solar potential in the country with the intention of hitting around 852 megawatts by 2030. When it comes to the policy, there is another policy that guides all the activities, all the infrastructure, whether it is energy, all the sectors in Kenya. And this is called Kenya Vision 2030. It is an ambitious long-term vision which includes energy targets to be achieved by improving electricity connectivity and growth in the off-grid solar power. So when I narrow to the policies that relates to energy and solar, there is a mother policy called the National Energy Policy that was enacted in 2018. That it commits to the provision of affordable quality energy for all Kenyans to meet the energy needs of the country in a sustainable manner. This energy policy is operationalized by an Energy Act that was enacted 1 year after the policy came into place, called Energy Act 2019. The Energy Act promotes the generation of renewable energy with a focus on solar, and it also has a lot of other functions. It clearly differentiates the functions of the county government, the national government, and all the energy agencies. It is the same policy that mandates the cabinet secretary in charge of energy to develop, publish, and review integrated energy plans to ensure delivery of reliable energy services and develop a conducive environment for the promotion of investment in renewable energy infrastructure. So the Energy Act has given functions to quite a number of energy agencies or entities, and allow me to mention maybe two, because they are the regulator. We have the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority that has the power to issue and review all licenses and permits for all undertakings and activities in the energy sector. So anybody, any investor, any person who is interested in doing a solar project in Kenya, you'll have to interact with the regulator, which is IPRA. It also manages electric power tariffs and tariff structures, investigate tariff charges, approve electricity power purchases and network services contracts for all persons engaging in electric power undertakings. We also have an energy tribunal. So if you are an investor and you have some conflicts with the regulator, the government, or any other person, the Energy Act put in place a tribunal that will hear and determine civil disputes and appeals from the regulator and any other licensing authority relating to the energy. We also have an authority called Rural Electrification and Renewable Energy Corporation, whose mandate is to spearhead development of renewable energy resources in Kenya and to accelerate the pace of rural electrification. It also mandated to undertake feasibility studies and maintain data with a view of availing the same to developers. So if you are coming into Kenya, you'll have to interact with this corporation so that you can get to know, or you can have the necessary data and also access the feasibility studies that have been done or that are being done, so that it can support development of the solar projects or any other energy project. There is a well done renewable energy feed-in tariff, which is meant to promote investment security to renewable energy electricity generators. This is meant to reduce administrative and transaction costs and also encourage private investors. The feed-in tariff policy specifies the contents of the standardized power purchase agreement for both and up to above 10 megawatts. And so this tariff is every energy source, whether it is solar, whether it is geothermal, whether it is hydro, are having their different tariffs. So the feed-in tariff applicable at the time when power purchase agreement is signed, and is always fixed value, which will apply for over 20 years in life of the power purchase agreement. So it comes into force when you sign a contract to supply power, and then it counts up to 20 years. That is when it is becomes ineffective. Renewable energy project installed capacity greater than 10 megawatts are considered. So it is meant to serve not small units, but targets productions that are greater than 10 megawatts. The tariffs also vary depending on the energy sources and installed capacity. Every 3 years, the government reviews this tariff, but it does not affect the already signed power purchase agreement. There is also what we have, what is called the least cost power development plan, that is the government put in place to serve between 2017 and 2037. So this recommends a changeover incentive schemes targeting solar and other mature clean energy sources to be excluded from the feed-in tariff. So I'm saying that moving forward, the government is putting strategies to not to subject solar plants or production of energy from solar to the feed-in tariff, but use what is called auction markets. Yeah, it's called it will use a commission under an auction market for future intermittent capacity plans. There is also the net metering regulations. We call it the energy regulations 2020 that allows grid connected consumers who own renewable energy generator for capacity less than 1 megawatt installed primarily for self-consumption to supply the excess power to a distribution license. So what this means is that if you generating power from solar and you have excess that you want to share with another person, there is a regulation that supports this, but it does not support that you sell that solar that energy directly. It is arranged in such a way that it is only the Kenya Power which is licensed to offtake that energy, but not any other person. So the regulations necessary for administration and implementation of the net metering systems were just recently undertaken through public participation, and people are happy. So we are just waiting for Gazette notice so that it can be implemented. And finally, we have regulation on solar water heating. Those who are investing in solar water heating, you come to Kenya, there is a regulation called the Solar Water Heating Regulations of 2022. The purpose of this regulation is to provide a licensing and regulatory framework for design, installation, operation, repair, maintenance, and upgrade of solar water heating systems in Kenya. The main purpose of this is to ensure safety and quality in the solar water heating value chain. The same as the net metering regulations, they were subjected to public participation, and they're supposed to come into force anytime when the cabinet secretary gazette them. Finally, when it comes to incentives, the government of Kenya normally periodically use tax incentives as a means of increasing investment. But this is done with a bit of caution, because the government may not want to prevent or to go into loss because of the tax invasions. But it supports the uptake of solar and to ensure compliance with state restrictions. So there are quite a number of policies that are put in place. I just mentioned a few for the sake of time, and ready to discuss further. Thank you.
Thank you, Laban, for bringing a lot of information, at least on institutional framework in Kenya. It has been good that you have not only talked about Kisumu, but Kenya in general. I'm sure there is a lot of questions when it comes to institutional framework. I mean, speaking of net metering and all that, operationalization of the same, I know they can be complicated. But for now, allow me to go to the next panelist, Dr. Matthew Matimbwi. So Matthew, you have been a leader of the sector association in Tanzania for quite some time now. And I know TAREA is very active when it comes to advocacy, capacity building, and all that. So I'm sure you are aware of so many things when it comes to solar energy promotion and investments in Tanzania. Of course, policy and the regulations in general. So the audience will be interested to hear from your perspective as Tarea. What are the policy instruments that are in favor of solar investments in Africa? Looking at, of course, in Tanzania, for example.
Yeah, thank you very much, Emmanuel, for this opportunity. The case of Tanzania, of course, we have based on national energy policy of 2015, that it has a policy statement about solar energy in general. But for a long time, we have been disseminating the technology using rural energy master plan, because here in Tanzania, our government investing very much for rural communities, because most of the urban areas, they have benefit of accessing electricity through national grid. For example, in Dar es Salaam, 99.9% of households are connected to utility. So you can see that these distributed technologies are mostly encouraged for rural communities where a national grid is not yet reached. So through the implementation of Rural Energy Master Plan, in which solar energy has received a very high investment, you will see that solar technology in Tanzania has been competing with the utility. For example, utility, by the numbers of 2020, has connected 40% of the household, but solar technology has connected 33% of households in the country. So you can see how solar technology is competing with the utility. But all of this have been possible because of the policy instruments. For example, Tanzania enjoys zero rated tax on basic solar equipment. If you import panel, charger controller, inverter, and the solar battery. Only from the last financial year, exercise duty has been imposed on lead-acid batteries. And there's a reason behind. Tanzania now is fighting electronic waste. So, for example, I've heard from the first speaker talking about second life of batteries. That has no room in Tanzania, because the government has just enacted e-waste regulations that are mentioning openly that such products like energy storage, second hand, are not allowed in the country, because now we have already a lot of electronic waste and we cannot manage. And all of you, you know what is the impact of it. So now it is quite well known that lead-acid batteries have short life. So now the government is discouraging the import of lead-acid battery. So now is encouraging lithium ion. That's why you have heard Musa saying that even the price of lithium battery in Tanzania is getting lower. All this, the government is trying to facilitate people to transit from lead acid to lithium ion for battery storage. So that is one of the enabling policy instruments. And also here in Tanzania, we have a Rural Energy Fund. Rural Energy Fund provides money to developers. And this money is collected from local taxi. Whenever I buy a liter of the petrol, I will be deducted 1% to go to rural fund. If I buy 1 kilowatt hour, 1% of the money I pay will go to Rural Energy Fund. And this money is used to support developers who are developing renewable energy in the off-grid areas. And most of the system developed in Tanzania are solar energy system. For example, we have 109 isolated solar mini grids in operation here in Tanzania. All these have been supported by Rural Energy Fund. A big percentage of this money have been raised from within the country. And we have other policies that support development of solar energy. For example, in Tanzania, we have a tariff policy that encourages cost-reflective tariff. So if you install your isolated mini grid, you want to sell electricity to communities, then you apply the tariff to regulator, and the regulator will give you a cost-reflective tariff so that you can operate your mini grid economically. We have other policies that support the development of solar energy in Tanzania. For example, Vice President Office has published climate change mitigation strategy. And one of the technology that is encouraged to be developed in the country is solar energy. And those technologies that pollute the environment are highly discouraged in this document. And currently, our country parallel is developing two policy documents. The country is developing a renewable energy strategy. At the same time, the country is developing energy efficiency strategy. And I've already seen the draft documents, and inside you will see that solar energy is also mentioned as one of the instruments to be implemented in the country. So these are policy instruments that the country is putting in the place in order to promote solar energy. When it comes to financing institutes, we have now, like 2 years ago, we had a problem in the country. The local banks really did not understand about renewable energy technologies. But I'm happy to tell you that now the local banks, not foreign banks, the local banks like National Bank of Commerce, Maendeleo Bank, owned by the Lutheran Church. We have Mwalimu Development Bank. This is owned by the teachers here in Tanzania. Now they have started offering funds for renewable energy. And there is a big fund also with Tanzania Investment Bank. This is a government bank that offer loans to renewable energy projects at 2% interest rate. So this is a very big step in our country. Yeah, before most of the projects were financed by the foreign investment. You see that developer in the country had to enter into partnership with a foreign investment person, and then the money will come from outside. But we have now projects, big projects like wind power in Mufindi that have been developed using money from CRDB. This is a cooperative rural development bank. It's a local bank and 100% owned by Tanzanians. And it has offered this money. So in a nutshell, this is what is being done in Tanzania. Thank you, Emmanuel.
Thank you very much, Matthew. A very interesting development that is happening in Tanzania in the renewable energy space. Of course, under the same auspice, we've had very interesting institutional framework in Kenya. So I think as a food for thought, I think we should, going forward, try to see how we can have a regional type of institutional framework so that we can cut across, different countries, and in this way we can be able to unlock this investment much easier. So thank you very much to the panelists for the session 2 on the policy and financing. I appreciate your contribution. So now we are running over time, so I need some guidance from Judith. How are we managing this now?
Yes, we are hard on time. I think we can just go to Akshay, who's about to lose some internet connectivity. Maybe he can just comment first before we go to Tarish. Akshay, are you in a position to actually speak?
Yes. Afternoon, everyone. Jambo Karibu. Unfortunately, yes, I said I will lose power. I can start in the meanwhile. If I do lose power, we've got load shedding here in South Africa, if some of you may know. And as a result, network servers drop down and only resume in about 15 minutes. So I will start, and if I do get cut out, please apologies, and you can carry on to the next viewer, next speaker. I will share my screen now. Okay.
So actually, before you proceed, I just want to tell the audience that this last session, which has got implementation experience, will be presented by the Energy Labs that are actually part of the SESA project. So it's going to be interesting to hear what's happening on the ground when it comes to solar energy. You can proceed, Akshas.
Thank you very much, Manuel. Just one thing to note is, of course, South Africa, we're still busy with our planning phase, and we're going to go into implementation soon. So I will skip through most of it. I'll go relatively quickly so that you have a chance to look at Kenya's implementation currently, which is ongoing. So from our side, again, part of the Living Lab from SESA, we are going to do a validation demo where we're going to have a containerized off-grid solar energy system, with PV panels, of course. And here we have second life EV batteries. So these are lithium batteries already. As the world is moving towards an electrified mode of transport, we are going to end up with a lot more battery systems that are going to be not good enough for vehicles, but still in a very good position for stationary storage. And this is the project we're aiming to at least try develop so that we can have a circular economy around lithium batteries. So the aim on our side, is one of these, the performance of the second life EV batteries. There is a technical and financial viability of the off-grid containerized system. And this is just to see how well we could roll this out into rural areas, and the scalability and the replicability of this use case, so that we can now replicate this in multiple sites and all over Africa, hopefully. In terms of specifications, what we have is, we're going to use a standard container, which is a 6-meter container. We are going to have 2 hybrid 16 kilowatt inverters, single phase in parallel. We're going to have a PV canopy, which will of course be used for the solar and also for covering the vehicles, the micro mobility vehicles that we're going to have there. And we envisage using a 30 kilowatt hour lithium battery pack. There is going to be wireless internet and information spots there, so for the rural areas, so we can spread network across. And also try use some of the information spot to spread useful information around medical, but also around the renewable side to show what a typical system like this is able to produce in terms of electricity. Just a little overview of what the system looks like. As you can see on the left, we have a container with a PV canopy. We have the 2 electric vehicles. I will go into that in a few minutes. and you have the inverter together with a solar panel and the second life battery. And then we've got our loads on the right, which is, we're going to look at putting it in a care facility in Alicedale. It's a smaller town, and they have a creche where volunteers assist, take care of children during the day. And there's an office space which is used by the community for all sorts of administrative tasks. And we have the electric vehicles that are down there. The next two slides is more on the electric vehicles, but I'll go through quickly because I think it's quite interesting. And you know, the first vehicle looks small, like a small three-wheeler, and it's we've selected the lithium-ion battery option, which gives us about 65 kilometers of range. It charges within 6 to 8 hours, and we're hoping to do that at night. And it's got a relatively good sized cargo box so that you can transport smaller components around. The next one is the passenger vehicle that you can see. Again, lithium-ion battery pack that we've gone for, giving about 60 kilometers of range, and this can transport about 6 people. Going onto the challenges for the system like this, you know, as I said, you know, we're trying to use second life EV batteries. So this is a relatively new novel system. I think Ghana or someone is using batteries second life system. We're trying to use a similar system. It's going to be from our local suppliers here. And with this being one of the first off-grid container systems that we're going to be involved with here, I think there could be some unknown challenges during commissioning and installation, more on the technical side. But this will be a good learning experience and will help us move forward with multiple installations. There is the performance of the second life battery pack is unknown theoretically, and from measurements we know that it should be good enough for storage. But this is part of the full cycle that we will try and understand what second life EV batteries can be used, and hopefully at a much lower cost point. You know, then there's, in being in a rural area, unfortunately, the GSM LTE signal strength could vary, and there's the hope of having internet around there could be a bit more challenging. But on the opportunity side, you know, I don't want to sound very negative. There's a lot more to learn here, and it'll identify a commercial case for local authorities to invest in. If this is a good, successful solution, you know, it could be something that many people could start a business around and stuff. And then comes around the repurposing of potential retired EV batteries, which could create a complete new sector for business on that side. And that's me. It's a quick one. Hopefully everyone could follow me. And I'll stop. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, for the insight. Indeed, actually, you need solar energy. I mean, in South Africa, unfortunately, you are facing some energy shortage, which is an interesting aspect. I mean, if you tell people in sub-Saharan Africa, they will say, "What's happening in South Africa?" But again, this is the reality. I mean, I think it's also about a fight of decarbonizing the energy dilapidated infrastructure, all the same. So thank you very much. So may I now request, I saw Chaz on, but Tarwish, whoever that wants to go for the Kenya chapter on Living Lab.
Yes, also good afternoon, everyone, and thanks, Emmanuel, for your welcome. So my name is Leme Tawish. I'm standing in for Charles today, although I think he's present, but I will do his presentation on behalf of Wetu. And just to introduce, of course, for the benefit of our viewers and the attendees, that Wetu is a social enterprise that is based in Kenya. We have several business propositions that we are working on in the western side of Kenya. Of course, this includes rural mobility. We have solutions around agriculture, particularly cooling and just a preservation of agricultural produce. We also do a little bit within smallholder farmers, mechanized tools that all the solutions are powered within by the renewable energy or by solar specifically for Wetu. And we're thankful that I'm not very sure, but I'll try my best to be able to prosecute the question that we have at hand. But of course, then the advantage is that in itself, we should be able to tell most of our viewers, particularly what Wetu does and what we participate in as a member of the SESA Consortium. So yes, probably to go directly, the first part of the question is maybe just to define what productive use of energy is, and also just to be able to contribute in our own experience, factors that then should be considered on the implementation of productive use of energy. So of course, directly from definition, productive use of energy, we are looking at several things here, and key within that definition is a utility ratio, meaning how much have you implemented? What size of a system have you done? Vis-a-vis how are you using in reality? What is the percentage of utility that you're achieving? If you did 10 kilowatts, are you able to expense and use the whole 10 kilowatt every day, or you're using a lower percentage? So yes, of course, in addition to that definition, other than that, you're looking at it as a ratio of utility, you'll be considering return on investment, and even key, the impact of itself. How much impact are you going to create in the communities that you're working with, whether positive, socially, either politically, but even more economically, because then you're going to measure your impact in terms of living standard and how many people are you going to either create employment or enhance business within the area that you're going, the jurisdiction that you're going to be located. So in a nutshell, productive use of energy would in itself put all these factors together that you're looking at it. Of course, the industry is still looking at what really matches the definition of levelized cost of energy, but most of it goes into it. So then to dive into some of the factors that we had considered, of course, I'll rush through my presentation because of time. Yeah, so to dive through my presentation in the definition of other factors that we are looking at, once there's of course a conventional means that the industry has adopted. You either develop a renewable energy system to a targeted community where you want to provide a solution, so that then the community can decide on itself in their own integrity which solutions do they want to power on your renewable energy that you provided. Of course, this basically we call mini grids. So that is the conventional way. But of course, this has faced challenges, particularly on issues of uptake of energy, where you will not have control as to how much will be consumed. Then resultantly, your system will have a very low utility ratio, meaning if you had installed, say, 10 units of energy, you may fall to be able to either sell or consume about 10 or less than 10, say 5 or less than 4, whatever, depending then on the on how you model it best. This is best explained in most of what the industry has put forth, the challenges that are facing mini and microgrids, of course, decentralized energy systems in its entirety. But then for us, what we looked at is an unconventional mean, where you go to the community, you look at the gaps in the market and what they need. Then you define the need, you look at the solution, you co-create with the community, you go through it and provide a simplified solution that you know that the community will be able to buy it up, will be able to utilize, and in its sense, it should be able to have an impact, just like we defined in the beginning, that they should be able to have an impact both socially, even environmentally, politically, and then raise the whole community. And of course, within it, that you'll be able to get an income or at least have a fashion of a sustainability within the solution you're providing. So yes, so with that in mind, it means then that as you move forward, because I think most of the presenters before has already discussed on issues of financing and even policy that is within the regulation frameworks within the industry in several countries. So you have all the factors and you now want to launch a project you want to do to commission, or you want to then operationalize and start running the business. So for us, what we realized that then it becomes an advantage to design a solution that is needed then power it with the renewable energy. So of course, then you're selling energy, you're promoting renewable energy, but you've looked at a solution that is the need that is in the market and offer the need and indirectly selling energy behind. Of course, that means you will have circumnavigated the challenges that are foreseen in microgrids and therefore be able to offer these challenges with an assured demand of your energy, hence ensuring that your return on investment is key, that your utility ratio will be key, and that even other factors, and even then just being able to push your solution into the community, having worked with the community, giving them a solution that they will be able to uptake in their own essence, in their own, I think at their own comfort and convenience. So this has helped us as SESA, and just then to introduce that we went into the market and as a partners to SESA, powering all our several verticals using renewable energy. So in our space, particularly in this region, we are doing electric mobility, we are doing ICE for preservation of. Also, we're doing cold storage for agricultural smallholder farming. And of course, then we are providing lanterns to fishermen that as they go out to fish at night, they'll have a lantern that attracts the fish, and also just to be able to allow them to operate as they go about fishing. So of course, these are key, and our products and our solutions and somehow related, and one is supporting the other. For example, after we generate electricity, some of it is stored, some of it is consumed directly. But then within us, we have electric mobility that should be able then to transport some of our solutions to the market. For example, you have ICE being transported with an electric vehicle, or even the lanterns being transported by an electric vehicle. ICE is produced using clean, safe water. So we also have a vertical that produces clean, safe drinking water, that other than that this is dispensed and sold to the community, we are using the same to develop ICE, meaning it is two-pronged. We are offering a solution to the market, but we are using the same solution to develop another solution that we are offering to the market. So we have quite an intricate model that intertwines several verticals together, but of course the target is to ensure, one, that we are able to eat into all the energy that we install, and of course in itself that we will have several levels where we can collect revenue here and there in trust for return on investment and just to be able to be sustainable. So one of the key things that we can outline that should be considered, particularly in the attempt to then launch into the market and actualize projects that are actually then essentially centered within a productive use of energy, is that you have to do a very nice feasibility study, which means, just like we have elaborated here, is that you will have to determine, for us particularly, to determine the solution we want to offer, look at it as a sustainable, and be able to choose the one that is most appropriate and can have a very big impact to the community, offer a solution that people, at least they can also be able to pay, meaning it's either necessarily very primary need or just near secondary, but also still very important supporting a primary need. So once you have done this, you have assessed, you know the numbers, you have a projection of your income stream, you have a projection on how much district you're going to conquer, you see the population that you're going to impact, you then move forward. Of course, in itself, then in that modeling, you will have developed your either sustainability plan or at least how you're going to recoup your investment. Once, of course, because we're doing renewable energy and it is decentralized solar, particularly for Wetu, it means within that solution, therefore, that you have chosen, you're going to do an energy audit. You do a load profile and say, for these solutions that we want to offer in these particular regions, we're looking at it being able to eat this much of energy. So once you have that in mind, so it means you can then be able to size your system correctly. And once you've sized your system correctly and in itself within it, define the technology you want to use, select the technology among the many, either the solar inverters or the battery technology you want to use, either apply a mix, just like former colleagues and panelists have mentioned, greater inverters, for example, vis-a-vis a hybrid inverter that puts several of the technologies together and bringing the cost down. So those kind of factors, all of them brought into the table and looked holistically in terms of course, a sustainable solution, a cheaper quality, of course, then also scalable, easy to use, and those kind of things within the technology. And just like Laban, a colleague very close here in Sumu County that we have worked very nicely, you will have to sort for permits and approval. For example, like us within, we maintain several licenses that are actually regulated by the Ministry of Energy. That means that you will have to have a license for construction and implementation of solar systems and even their maintenance. We also need a license to import solar products and those kind of things. And once you have all those licenses and you have a go ahead to be able to implement, you will still proceed to go and get construction permits that are either offered by the local governments or other permits that are offered by the by the national government. So once you have all those factors together, you know that you now operating legally, you have all your necessities in place. And of course, regulation is important for several reasons. One, that this is actually a solution that is going to the community, so the government has to check its safety and quality. And of course, in itself, then it will be able to monitor in any other issues of either importation of substandard good or even substandard work. So in this, for us internally, we make sure that we are very compliant and also just lessen the risk of either getting penalized by non-compliance in these kind of issues. So I would imagine that this will apply for most of the countries or just in projects in general, that in any space that you be operating in, you need to be compliant and you need to seek authority for whatever project you need to do. Of course, including environmental impact assessment, that as much as small or as much as whatever nature of the project you want to do, you want to be convinced that whatever you're coming into, you're not going to finally be able to impact the environment. However clean the solution you want, in essence, then someone else comes, an independent mind comes to look at the totality of the solution in relation to the people, in relation to the environment and the whole ecosystem. And of course, for example, for us, we have implemented a lantern to be able to actually save the environment of this lake region. Majorly, just to probably divert a little bit, the solution we have offered is the substitute of a lead acid battery that is usually used by fishermen in the Lake Victoria in Kenya. So meaning the end life of this battery will finally end in the lake. And of course, this means that you're depositing lead acid in the lake. Of course, planktons and other plants will eat it up. It will get into the fish and finally end up in the food chain. Meaning finally we will lead into this region being affected by the effects of lead in their bodies and susceptibility to non-communicable diseases. So of course, then looking at it in reality as such, so that as you walk, because usually projects are long, it's a long haul, as you walk through, you'll be able to remember that your focus is renewable and be able to take care of the environment. So of course, the mother of everything in every project will be planning, that you want to visualize your project from the beginning and be able to see that this is the possible outcome that you're looking at, and be able to change whatever small variances and put yourself risk averse within that process, so that finally you deliver your vision and actually in the articulated objective in your planning. So much of it, of course, is also that the innovativeness of your business model, because then it sits in the very question that we are asked today, productive use of energy. If you not have a very innovative solution to the community, it actually means you don't have an uptake of it. No one will buy into it. You will end up not then being able to utilize your energy, and your utility ratio will be very low, meaning in itself, the whole business will have a very low success rate. So you look at it very carefully.
Can you use a half a second to conclude?
Yeah, so in conclusion, I would say that some of the solutions we have offered look very simple, yet they are very impactful in the community. I would say that the mother of everything in terms of productive use of energy will necessarily mean that you will have considered the best and most innovative business models and considering all the factors that had been there. We are very thankful for the opportunity through SESA that we are validating all our 4 verticals, and several of them including recycling and e-waste management. And we're looking forward to see how much this will be scaled up. Of course, in the interest of time, we would have looked at the challenges that we had seen, but we are very thankful and we welcome any further questions and just invite that the conversations continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leme. A very rich presentation indeed. So actually, I would request the two of you, yourself and the colleague from South Africa, to possibly share the link of your project in the chat room so that people can follow up, because I see there's a lot of interesting information that is available there and which can also be replicated in elsewhere. And in the same token, I would also like to ask participants to pose their questions. I've seen people have been posing their questions to the Q&A panel. You can still do the same, and the panelists and the other people will be responding to the questions. So I want to thank you very much for your patience. We have really learned over time, but I think it's been worth it. But again, this kind of webinar is also meant to not only capacity building, but also building network, understanding what other people are doing from elsewhere, and then actually replicating or even connecting from each other. So my session was to moderate especially the panelists. My name is Emmanuel Michael Biliriza, the energy specialist from the Urban Energy Solutions team of the Urban Basic Services section within UN Habitat, based here in Nairobi, which is the headquarters. So finally, I would request Judith to conclude the session by having a final word.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel, for the session. And thank you to all the speakers for taking us through this very interesting and engaging session. So I'll just summarize basically what has been discussed today. I can see we are having some, Wetu is actually sharing their slides right now. So thank you very much.
I think they can close their slides, yeah?
I can ask you to stop sharing your
Yes.
screen. Yes, thank you very much to all our speakers and our panelists, and thank you also for our attendees for reaching the end of this session. So far we have gone through looking at solar energy. We have looked at the challenges where we had Samuel from Ghana, Gift from Malawi, Eric from Rwanda, and Musa from Tanzania, where they touched on different challenges. We looked at affordability, information accessibility, access to finance, and also we touched on the positive policy environment in Tanzania that is encouraging the development of solar energy, including the 0% VAT. Next, we went into the policy and finance session where we had Joao from AFDB, who talked about how FDB is supporting access to finance for investors, developers, and also working with banks. Then we listened to Matthew and Laban from Tanzania and Kenya, respectively, both of them working with the government, and they shared the different policy instruments that we can learn from the two countries and implement them in other African countries. Finally, we had a discussion from Living Labs, both from South Africa, where we have Uyilo, and we had from Kenya, where we had Wetu, where we had Tarwish, and I think he's already dropped off, Ankash, talking about the different SESA implementations, where Uyilo talked about their containerized off-grid solar energy system pilot that they're about to undertake. And Wetu also talked about extensively their different projects regarding rural mobility, e-mobility, cooling, and also developing safe water. So that's an overview of the presentations that were given. We will make sure to share the video of the recording so that you can actually refer to it, and also the presentations with the attendees who are here. Just to inform you that we will be having other webinars for the different capacity building activities that we are doing. The next webinar will be focused on waste to energy and clean cooking, and you shall receive some more information on that. Once again, thank you so much for your for staying with us to this point. Thank you for your attendance. We will also look at the questions that have been asked. The ones that have not been responded to, we will get the panelists to respond to them, and we will share this with all the attendees. Thank you again, and I wish you a good day. And if you have any questions, feel free to send an email to us if they've not been responded to. Thank you very much and have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.